Fareed Zakaria did an interesting segment on Trump's re-election strategy. So let's take a look at this, and then I'll explain where I think he's right and where I think he's wrong.
Welcome to Donald Trump's re-election strategy, where he is both the government and the fiery opposition to that government. Populism has always fundamentally been a protest movement of outsiders railing against a corrupt elite that runs the country. Right-wing populism, additionally, makes a distinction between the real people and the others, who tend to be foreigners, immigrants, blacks, Jews, and other minorities. Now, this strategy works well when you're out of government. Once you're inside, though, you face a challenge. Politicians who win elections usually try to broaden their base and unify the nation. But populism depends on division and dissatisfaction. In addition, in times of genuine emergency, people sober up. Across the world, many populist parties that frivolously attack the establishment have struggled to make their voices heard. In a pandemic, it turns out, many people want their governments to take an active stance, preferably based on advice from experts. Trump's solution is to play insider and outsider simultaneously. One day he announces a careful plan devised by public health officials that announces a step-by-step process for opening up. The next day he sides with street protesters against governors who are following those very guidelines. It's a complicated dance. You can watch the two Trumps at his press conferences. He begins the session as President Trump, making the day's official pronouncements, reading in a dreary monotone from a script he doesn't appear to have looked at before. And then, from time to time, Donald Trump, the populist icon, suddenly pops up, commenting on his own script. For example, to say, after recommending the use of masks,
"This is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it."
The Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde routine continues throughout the briefing. As his own health officials take the podium to make some substantive point, Trump will jump in to say something that is at odds with the message they are trying to convey. But Trump seems worried that this dance may not be enough to win him re-election, especially as unemployment mounts. The president has surely noticed that his approval ratings remain roughly where they were before the pandemic, which is astonishing given that crises usually boost presidential approval enormously. So, he has doubled down on the attack strategy against the usual scapegoats, the media and what has become an absurd daily routine, as well as blue state governors, liberal cities, international organizations, and now, of course, most pointedly, China. He's also returning to his favorite target, immigrants. The president's ban on immigrants seeking green cards from coming into the country for 60 days is strange, since the U.S. has already largely halted immigration. But it's not really a policy, it is a political symbol, a reminder to Trump's base that they can always count on him. There is, of course, another path. Donald Trump could have used the crisis to rally the nation around a common foe. He could have provided calm, sensible leadership, stayed on message with his own health officials, and fostered unity rather than division. That's the approach of German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who now has a 79% approval rating. It is the strategy of Emmanuel Macron, who has moved up 10 points in his very polarized country. But it turns out that Donald Trump knows only one dance, call it the populism hustle, and he seems uninterested in learning any other.
So there's a lot to say about this. Just as a side note, very quickly, I don't agree with his portrayal of populism. Populism is just doing the popular will of the people, period. So I would say Trump is not a populist. He's a fake populist, but he keeps referring to him as if he's like a genuine populist. But anyway, I digress from that. It's a side point. Let's get into the substance of it. So there's some truth in what he's saying there, and there's always been this like back and forth, this wrestling match in Trump's own mind about which direction to go in, and he's even voiced it publicly. He's tweeted about it. He said, he used to go at his rallies and say, "Oh, who thinks we should run in 2020 on Make America Great Again? Who thinks we should run on Keep America Great?" He would go to the rallies and ask the question and see the reaction from the crowd, because part of him wants to run again on Make America Great Again, and the other part of him wants to say, no, I already made America great, so now we're going to run on Keep America Great. I did all this amazing work in 4 years and everything's perfect now. So let's run on Keep America Great. So that's kind of what Fareed Zakaria is alluding to there, is that there are two Trumps. The outsider Trump, who's like, I'm an outsider and I'm taking him on and I'm going to bring it all down. And then there's like I'm Mr. Win-Win-Win and I never lose Trump, and I've already won, and I am the alpha male, the head guy, the boss who's in control, and I've already accomplished all of my goals. You see, there's a conflict there. What is it? Are you the leader and you accomplished all your goals and everything's great? Or does everything suck and you're the outsider and you're still fighting against these evil forces, but you haven't gotten to the promised land yet? So there is that, dichotomy, and there is that conflict between those two worldviews. However, here's where I disagree with Fareed Zakaria. It's not a strategy. It's not a strategy. He's not like, he's just going with his instincts. That's it. And the problem for him is his instincts are contradictory on this point, and they will remain contradictory. So he never really will make up his mind whether to go with Keep America Great or Make America Great Again, and that's why he's gone with both. And so it's just however he feels in the moment. If he feels like I'm going to be the fake anti-establishment, fake populist outsider, if he feels like that in the moment, he goes with that. The next day he might feel like, no, I'm the boss man and I've already handled everything and we've already made America great and so we're going to keep it great. Then he goes with that. So what Fareed Zakaria is missing here is none of this is planned on Trump's part. None of this is I'm going to try to play both those roles at the same time. It's always his feeling. It's always his instinct. Now, previously, his instinct has been good politically, but now you're running into contradictory messaging because it's inescapable. Now that he's been president, you're right. He can't perpetually be the outsider when you're the guy. You got it. You're in control now. And you could see this mindset as well manifest with how he's going to choose to run against Biden. Part of what his messaging was going to be is, look how great everything is already. This was back before the economy imploded. He could have said, the official unemployment rate is really low and we created X amount of jobs and all that stuff. That would be an argument that's to the right of Biden. Or he could have done the old, I'm going to go to the left of Biden. I'm going to hit him on NAFTA. I'm going to hit him on the Iraq War. And I'm going to brag about doing the First Step Act, which was criminal justice reform. So he could have went to the left of Biden. And again, my guess is you're going to see Trump try to do both of those things and ultimately be contradictory. And as a general rule with Trump, I think he's better as a politician when his back is against the wall. And I said it before and I'll say it again. I think that a national crisis is like tailor-made to be a situation he's not good in. Because when you portray yourself as the bomb-throwing outsider and then all of a sudden a crisis hits, Fareed Zakaria is right that people want like calm expertise and leadership. And Trump is the perpetual, shit stirrer, for lack of a better term. And you don't want a shit stirrer in a crisis. You want that calm, reasonable, strong leadership. And so that doesn't bode well for him. Now, the final point I'll make is I don't know what's going to happen in this election. Particularly, there's a variety of reasons why I don't know what's going to happen, but Fareed Zakaria points out, we're having a crisis and Trump's approval rating is the same. He did have a little bit of a bump there early on, but he only got to 50-something%. It wasn't as high as like Angela Merkel, like he was saying there. But a crisis usually boosts a president's approval rating until the reality sets in that those problems haven't been fixed. That's why with George W. Bush, he got the post 9/11 bump in approval rating because everybody felt patriotic and you fall in line behind your leader when you get attacked. But after a while, when he did illegal wars and he didn't fix the problems and then the economy tanked, His approval rating was like 28% or 29%. It was a record low. So the question is, when the voting happens, what point will we be at on that spectrum? Are we still going to be at the point where people go, we have a crisis, it's a national emergency, you don't want to switch leadership in the middle of a crisis, we got to stay the course, and we got to support our leader? Is that where we are? Or are we at the point where people are like, he hasn't handled this well, he's a mess, and we should probably change leadership to anybody but him? It's going to be one of those two places, and who knows where we'll be at the time of the election. It really could go either way. It absolutely could go either way. But my main disagreement with Fareed Zakaria here is that he's portraying it as if it's like a calculated Trump strategy. It's not a strategy. Trump always, always, always goes with his instincts. And for better or worse, sometimes it's politically advantageous, sometimes it's the opposite. But right now, his instincts have him in a little bit of a pickle because it gives him that contradictory message. Because some days he feels like Mr. Boss Man and we've already fixed everything and we're great. And other days he feels like, the establishment is, we got to fight the establishment and we got to take them down. So some days he's the pinnacle of the establishment and I'm Mr. Boss Man, I control everything. And other days he's the angry outsider who's fighting on behalf of the people. This is how he portrays himself. So yeah, it's not a strategy. He's all instincts all the time. And I think Fareed is reading in too much he's giving him too much credit and too much agency. That's the point. Because a guy who, just like he did the other day, ranting about how, the disinfectant, we should be able to get that in the body somehow, the UV light, get it in the body somehow. Like, that guy is not calculated. And I think if he thought about it a little harder, he'd realize, yeah, it's not calculated. It's a battle of competing instincts.